Stand by for a brand new episode of All Things Good and Nerdy.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 483 of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. This is recorded live on Sunday, April 17th, 2022. I am Chris. Joining me today, I got one of my regular co-hosts. The other is a little under the weather. So if you want to send him some well wishes, tweet at South Porky and say, hope you feel better, rather. But joining me today, Mr. Anthony Bachman.
Hello. Happy Easter.
Now, I didn't realize until we actually started the show right here, this is almost an anniversary for the show. I believe our very first episode recorded and dropped April 18th, 2012. This is almost exactly the 10-year anniversary of this podcast.
Holy shit. Back when Adahay used to say, cut a bitch on Easter.
Yeah, when we had Naki around too, and
Yep.
I'm the only original crew left.
Yep. Chris is the last OG.
You guys better replace me soon, because that's the precedent on this show, is that everyone replaces the original cast members. So
yeah, and we know exactly why that's not going to happen.
Who's going to replace me is the question. Send your comments in the chat room.
Who wants to do all the work? Nobody.
That's a fair point. Fair point.
Says the guy with ATGN on his mic stand who's doing all the production, who has all the buttons.
I can change it. I mean, what do you want it to be? Here's the Starling Tribune, if you'd rather flip to that. Or
bring back the Arrowverse.
Here's the GonnaGeek.com podcast, and then here's the Gonna Geek Network. So which one do you want me to go with? I've got 4 on here, 4 blanks.
The man is a professional podcaster, people.
Oh, I am not a professional. If I was professional, I would make money, not lose money on this hobby. This is not me complaining and give us money, guys. Just keep in mind, most of your hobby podcasters out there, of which we are,
are losing funds.
It's a fairly cheap hobby. Let's get that straight. It's not like we're losing tons of money, but we do pay for a domain name that renews every year. We pay for hosting space on Podbean, and we of course buy our own gear and equipment. So it's a hobby we enjoy. We enjoy interacting with people in the chat room and on Twitter, Facebook, all of those things. But just be kind on your hobby podcaster and realize that sometimes when things aren't going great, it could be because we're having gear issues or something like that, and we're not exactly in a position to go and replace it or swap things out, or real life gets in the way of troubleshooting, because I wish this was my job. It'd be a lot of fun, but I don't know. Part of me is like, man, I'd love one day to be like Cody, our good friend Cody Goff, who's been on the show, used to host Curiosity Daily, regular guest to host on Gonna Geek Show, and also he used to do Unqualified Gamers, and then Game Life Balance US. He pivoted into doing professional podcasting for a while, and while part of me goes, man, that'd be great, there's a part of me that goes, I don't know how much I'd enjoy my hobby then turning into my job. Because I really enjoy getting to sit down with folks, shoot the shit, talk about geeky things. But I don't have to worry about, I said something that's like, I thought was right, but I found out 2 weeks later was like not fully correct, and I've got to course correct it, because if I don't, I'm going to get review bombed, and I've got all this other stuff going on. That's not to say I won't course correct and do that. I have done this on this show before, come back and said I've said things wrong. But my livelihood's not based on the fact that I may have spoken out of turn without realizing it, or something like that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, because I what was that? Was it daily podcast that Cody did?
He used to do Curiosity Daily.
Curiosity Daily, yeah. I listened to that for a while, and like they had to be squeaky clean, because they had media overlords. So like there's no shit fucks pisses on that one, which I kind of like.
It has its place.
I'm a foul mouth sailor, so
I mean, it depends on the content of what you're talking about. I think whether you want to go into adult language or not, because if you're unaware, let's get into the nitty gritty of things a little bit. There are some countries where if you're an explicit podcast, you're banned. So you're automatically cutting yourself off from tons of people.
Banned in China.
Yeah, we've been banned in China forever. I mean, it is what it is. I don't really think the Chinese were really too interested in our opinions on various television shows that they probably don't get to consume, to be fair.
Well,
but
probably banned in China since the first time Adahay said he'd cut a bitch.
Yeah, probably. I'll be honest, if I were working on a new show idea, I'd probably lean towards it being clean, just because that makes it a little easier to distribute everywhere. but at the same
then
time,
maybe I don't want to see if you want to do a wrestling podcast.
well, so a wrestling podcast, I think, is a different story. I think you could go the route of, and I've actually considered doing a wrestling podcast, but here's the thing. There's so many wrestling podcasts out there that are hosted by fat white men with beards in their late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
Hey, right here.
Yeah, it is. We are kind of an archetype.
I mean, but to be fair, it's not like I don't have the thought
fair.
of doing the podcast to try and become famous or rich or anything like that. It's just I enjoy doing them to talk about things. And I will say one lesson I've learned, and we can move off of podcasting talk after that if folks want. I don't think I'll ever do another podcast that's focused around a television show. I've done 2. I did a Walking Dead podcast like that. And then SP Michelle and I did the Starling Tribune in its last 4 years, wrapped things up, which was all about Arrow, and then kind of pivoted to talking about the Arrowverse at large and focusing on Legends of Tomorrow. And while I really enjoyed those shows, it also kind of turned it into a chore to watch those shows and took them from being fun to, oh my God, okay, I watched it once. Now if I have time, I need to go back and watch it a second time to make my notes of the things I want to talk about. And I love talking about the shows with people, and I love doing the show with them. But one of the things I learned doing 2 television show based podcasts is it took a lot of the fun out of it for me eventually, because it's like, oh my God, I didn't like this episode. I don't like where this character arc's going. Now I got to defend myself, because some of the stuff, chat rooms, especially when you get elements of fandoms in them, are not very happy when you have a take that they don't like. And I was like, I'm just tired of, I don't want to have to deal with the blowback on this because of how I feel about a subject, or I don't want to have to worry about because I shared my thoughts on this, which aren't really incendiary, but that some element of the fandom's going to pick it up and run with it and be like, oh my God, this guy's an asshole, blah, 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 blah. I just kind of have better things to do than get beat up for my opinion on a television show like that. I mean, and that didn't happen very often. It happened a few times. It's just podcasting about TV is very hard, especially when it's a current run show.
Yeah, that is kind of why I liked what I was doing when we were doing a CMYK TV, was we just had people basically pick the shows they liked, because there is so much comic book based TV entertainment that's out there on Netflix and the streaming services and cable TV. And so for a while we were doing it, I think Jason was the only one of us that was watching The Walking Dead, because it was in season 6 or something at that point. And so I was talking about Flash almost every week. He was talking about Walking Dead. Other people were talking about, Legends of Tomorrow and stuff. But yeah, it was because we didn't focus it on one show. I think it was a lot easier for us, because it's oh no, I'm just going to talk about the show that I watched that I really liked. And if there was, 4 or 5 shows that week, I'll pick the 1 or 2 that really had something cool in them that I enjoyed, and then focus on that. And yeah, not just have to talk about the one specific episode of one show.
No, that makes sense. I get it. And that's not to say Chris is saying if you're interested in a television show or you love something, don't go make a podcast about it. I just bring that up as kind of a cautionary tale of I really enjoyed Arrow, and we got to season 7 and I was just getting tired, and I was like, okay, I'm still enjoying the show off and on, but I'm not enjoying it all the time. And I also don't want to be that guy that goes online and just craps all over a show all the time because I'm not enjoying it, because that's not what fans want to hear. And that's part of the reason why we stopped doing the Walking Dead podcast, in all honesty, because, and I'll admit this on this show, I think I've admitted on the Gonna Geek show, there's 2 episodes of the Walking Dead podcast where I didn't have time because life got in the way to watch the show that we were talking about. So I read 3 different recaps and captured some of the feedback on Twitter of what was going on. And if you notice very carefully, if you can find those episodes, I don't really lean too hard about what I think about it. It's more I start referencing how other people were talking about the show, because I didn't have a chance to watch it. And
yes, then it's becoming homework. Yeah. Then that's not you enjoying a show and watching it for fun. It's just homework.
And that's shitty of me that I did that. Let's be honest here. But it's not. But the way these schedules work on those is there's a new show each week, and I didn't have time to get stuff out. So that's what we had to do. And that's not me giving the best effort that I should. Life got in the way. I admit it. I don't know. TV shows are tough. Okay, let me rephrase. New run TV shows are rough. I think you could do a better or have more fun with it if you were going back and be like, hey, this is a show that's already finished airing. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about it from episode 1, and we're going to do a limited run podcast that works our way through the entire series, and we're going to talk about it. Because here's the thing. You don't have to keep up with the television schedule then. If something happens, you can be like, hey guys, we had to reschedule. We're 2 weeks out. And then
Yeah.
we'll come back and we'll talk about Best of Both Worlds Part 1 in Star Trek Next Gen or something like that. I think that's a bit of a different story, but here's the catch. If you do a podcast on an older television program, you're automatically limiting your audience because there's a lot of folks that are mostly focusing on new stuff. And again, if it's a hobby and something you want to talk about, that's great. But you got to temper your expectations as to whether that's going to be something that you get a huge following for. And there's something to be said for just doing it because you enjoy it. And if people tune in and interact with you, that's great. Because honestly, that's the spirit of this podcast. Is our viewership numbers, both live and audio, have fluctuated over the last 10 years. And to be perfectly blunt, we're not at our highest numbers we ever were right now. We're 10 years old. We follow the same format. That sort of makes sense. And there's a lot of shows out there that do the same thing we do. That's not me complaining. That's not me telling you guys, oh, subscribe, make sure you hit all these things. That's just the nature of the beast. And if you want that interaction, doing older TV shows, I think, is a tougher thing to do, especially in a crowded space. Like if you wanted to do Star Trek, because there's tons of Star Trek podcasts out there.
Yeah,
Star
I mean,
Wars
having a focus is good, but it's also nice if you can pivot with it. Because like I've been getting all caught up on the Invincible podcast, and like they started their show, I want to say when the Invincible comic was in like probably after issue like 110 or something. So it was something where like I think they joked about the fact that like right after they announced their podcast and started doing it is when Kirkman announced that the comic book was ending. And so they're like, well, shit, what the hell? And then they, sat down and thought about it, and they did like new reader episodes. So like one of them brought in their girlfriend and her friend, and like they read through the trades.
That's cool.
And these are people that had never read Invincible and did episodes where they got their reaction from every storyline that was happening with, a very different audience because it's, like the three main hosts, it's like us, it's three white guys. And then they had their girlfriends reading it. So it was, a very different reaction to the storylines, getting a female perspective. And then they started doing, other stuff like other books that Kirkman had done. And so like they did a run on talking about Astonishing Wolfman. And then they did, all the spin-off little one-shots of Invincible, and then they did Guarding the Globe. So it was more like, the Invincible podcast is more like the Invincible Universe podcast, and now they talk about the cartoon, and they're still talking about the movie that Seth Rogen's been working on for 10 years. And so like they have other things in it, so it's not just the comic. So, it depends. Like, yeah, if you find something you love, you can broaden your horizons and talk about, a lot of stuff that are involved with that thing. If it's not just, one very specific thing.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a great hobby. That's why we do it, because we have fun with it. We don't do it to become rich and famous. We don't do it to make money. We do it because we enjoy bullshitting with each other and because we enjoy talking about random stuff.
It's true. It's true.
Now,
damn true.
If you could find a way for me to earn a living doing this the exact same way we're doing it now, where it's loosey-goosey, and I could probably do that, but I don't think we're ever going to make a living off of it that way.
I would say, even if I made $5 a month, I'd probably make sure I was on time a little more often. I was 5 minutes late today, people. Goddamn.
If we made $5 a month, we still wouldn't pay for our yearly expenses, though.
I'm saying $5 a month each.
Oh, okay.
Big money. Big money.
Yeah. I mean, our whopping domains, our storage space each year from Podbean's like $100. So to be honest, it's a hobby that's not expensive to get into because we pay $15 a year for a domain name, $100 a year for the website with the storage space, and then we buy our own gear, which is a one-time cost. And you can gradually upgrade as you go, because if you've been watching this show over 10 years, I know you've seen an evolution of my gear, that's for sure.
You get slightly better headphones, slightly better microphones.
Although these headphones are like 6 years old at this point in time. There's that.
Yeah, see,
noise
I went
back
up
again.
from the 30s to the 40s, but I love these now. I see no reason to replace
These
them.
are
They're
the
fantastic.
40s, I think. I can't remember. I don't know.
Audio Technica makes good stuff.
They do. And then I got this microphone because I got a good deal on it.
Trying to remember why I got this specific one. I think it was because it was on sale on Amazon.
What is that? The Audio Technica 2100?
Yeah, I think it's the 2100. Yeah, because it was somewhere like, yeah, I'd gotten the second set of headphones and I really liked those, and so I was just looking at their gear on Amazon.
It's a good mic because it has both USB and XLR inputs on it, so you can use it on anything. And it's almost indestructible.
Yeah, it stood up pretty well so far. I mean, and it's moved from, like, I think this was at the, let's see, I don't know if I had this microphone at the old house. I might have bought this after I was using the Chromebook doing the podcast on my buddy Maya's.
I honestly don't remember. Yeah, I mean, but for instance, this microphone's only XLR, so I have to have a board and all that other stuff. USB keeps things simple if that's what you want to do. I mean,
I like simple.
there was a time when those USB mics were affordable, but the prices widely fluctuate right now for a lot of those USB XLR combo mics. So if you're interested, it's you're better off. My last bit of advice on this topic before we move off of it. Please, 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 if you're going to do a podcast, make sure you get a dedicated microphone of some kind, because while you might think your USB headset's really good, it's not as good as you think it is. And
it's never as good as you think it is.
It's never as good as a standalone microphone. Like, it's great for Teams calls at work, or it's great for playing video games and stuff like that. But for a medium like podcasting that's all about audio quality and things like that, don't do it unless you've got like a broadcast quality headset, not like the $30 Logitech headset. Note the irony of this. For the first like 10 episodes of this show, I did my part on a Logitech USB headset, but that's neither here nor there. I think you can find that. Oh man, I think that's on Adahay's YouTube channel. I don't have the videos for that. I'm trying to think of when I got the videos started. I don't think we started having the videos on our own channel until like episode 200 or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, and there's like randomly like 5 of them on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Which is very strange. When I go back and look at my YouTube channel, it's such a mismatch of random bullshit.
Yeah.
Like I have like 20 videos. It's like 5 ATGNs, like my the ice bucket challenge.
Yeah, mine's on there too.
When we killed Asha Katara in Rift, I posted the video of that from our Rift guild, because we were the first guild, I believe, worldwide to kill that character. And it's literally just like all you can see is 100 characters standing on top of each other in a very small space, because we had to like sneak into the capital city of the good guys to kill the queen of the good guys. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
But that's enough about us pontificating on podcasting. We're certainly not the experts on it, but if you want to be a better hobby podcaster, learn about it, go check out SP and Steven, who host Better Podcasting as part of the Gonna Geek Network. It's on a light hiatus right now, but there is a huge back catalog with all sorts of tips and tricks and ideas of how to outline your episodes and things like that. It is a great, great tool for those that want to learn. And when they get back into doing shows again, every other week is a Q&A week, where they'll open up for questions that people send in or from the chat room and stuff like that. So go check them out if it's something you're thinking about.
I keep thinking about going back to the idea I had for my one-man show. It would be a limited run because it's specifically set on a number of comics. Mm-hmm. But man, it would be me doing a lot of talking.
I've done one-man shows before.
Because I could do it by volume, but the first volume would be a bastard because it would be 77 episodes. So like if I tackle it, like it'd be tough.
The nice thing with that though is you can record a bunch of them at one time and trickle them out. So you're not necessarily having to go week to week. You'd be like, okay, this weekend I've got time to record 3 episodes. Next weekend I can record 1, and you just bank them up and.
Yeah, and it's all based on a comic book, and I own all the issues. So yeah, it's something where I would have all of the source material. I could record it whenever I want. Yeah, it's somewhere like if I ever did it, I would probably sit down and do like the first 12. And get them all recorded before I publish a single episode.
I burned myself out when I did my one-man show because I was doing 3 other podcasts at the same time. So trying to do 3 other podcasts that shit
was crazy.
Do the scripting, the post-production, and the editing on my own one-man podcast. I just couldn't do it. And it became that this project I really liked was something I went, no, I got to stop because this is just killing me. I can't keep track of everything that's going on. That's not to discourage people. That's more to say, hey, you need to make sure you have the proper amount of time to do things. Don't be like Chris, who's like, I'm going to do everything. Everything. Doesn't work.
Doing everything can be great, but it can also burn you the fuck out.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? You know what else is also great, though? That would be the news of the week.
Live from the ATGN studios on the internet, it's the news of the week.
Welcome to the News of the Week. It's that part of the show where Bachman and I are going to run down some of the things that we found most interesting here in the world of geek with you fine folks who are watching live or listening at a later date. You can find the podcast over at atgnpodcast.com, by the way, if you want to listen at a later date. Willie, like I said, won't be here this week because he was feeling under the weather. So I did pick up 2 news stories so that we can fill the 3 news story gap, or quota rather. We're going to power through at least mine pretty quick because there's not a ton to cover on them, but they are interesting, I guess is the best way of putting it. So let's talk about video games first. And this is one that I was a little conflicted on, but let's go back a few years. And I remember we talked about on this show how they were doing the dynamic insertion of ads into games like NBA 2K that folks had bought, putting non-skippable ads on the load screens and things like that. And we had a lot of concerns, especially over saying, I bought a $60 game and you're going to keep advertising to me and you're going to keep putting these ads into my game by patching new content in. And we found...
Well, we've been watching on-demand episodes of stuff on Sling, and you get, like, per episode of Face Off, we get 6 commercial breaks, and they're all now new commercials. We're not watching commercials from 2011. And what I'm finding extremely annoying is the TNT and TBS replays of Rampage and Dynamite do not have the picture-in-picture and the commercials that were recorded at the same time. And they like to tout the fact that they're going to commercial, but you won't miss a minute because it'll be picture-in-picture. And instead, Sling cuts out those commercials and puts in new commercials.
I wish we could get Fight TV here in the States without elaborate VPN workarounds, because if you watch on Fight TV, it keeps going and you keep getting the commentary. And supposedly the commentary while they're on commercial break on TBS is kind of hilarious from time to time.
Oh, nice.
Because they know they are on a different broadcast standard, basically.
Commercials are still the bane of our existence.
So
all I'm saying.
We're going to talk about ads right here. And this is something that Microsoft came out with. There was a news story that broke. And I went and got this story from The Verge, and we'll just read bits and pieces of it, saying, quote, Microsoft is reportedly working on a program that will let brands showcase advertisements within free-to-play Xbox games, according to a report from Insider. Sources familiar with the situation told Insider the ads would not disrupt gameplay, but it would be something like appearing on a billboard in a racing game, for example. Now, there's no notes for how Microsoft plans on implementing ads, such as having them show up as avatar skins, videos within lobbies, things like that. But Insider did note Microsoft is concerned that ads could irritate players and is planning on building a private marketplace to only let select brands into this program. They also said, and this is what I found interesting, Microsoft will not take a cut of ad revenue and will instead allow the game developer and advertising company to share the funds. Now, this is on free-to-play games that you buy on an Xbox. So there's a distinction already from what I brought up at the top of it, which was we were talking about I bought a $60 game. They kept dynamically inserting ads on loading screens and things like that. I find
the loading screen ones I hate.
Yeah. I find myself thinking this is less problematic, but it's still a slippery slope. But at the same time, it's not really changing my gameplay experience. If I see, say, a billboard for Netflix while I'm playing a racing game, who cares? It's in the background. It's not like you're splashing it all over something essential. It's background pieces. And it makes sense for sports games, for instance. You've got like all these digital marquees you'd have in the stadiums that are ads in real life.
Yeah, so why shouldn't they be ads in game?
Right.
Because that would make it more realistic. I'm trying to take it a step further. So think about Cyberpunk 2077, whatever the fuck it was. It's like you're walking around and you see an advertisement for a company. And then you have the question of whether or not that ad is for a real company or a made-up in-game company.
So, I mean, that could be one of the extensions. Caveat again, though. This story is saying specifically for free-to-play games.
For free-to-play games.
So this is...
Yeah, because that makes it a big difference. That is a huge difference. You're not paying for the game. So if there's in-game ads...
The logical extension,
you got to get paid somewhere.
And this article on The Verge gets to this point, too. But the logical extension here is we've seen that games have been holding pretty fast at $60 for the last 10, 15 years for a game. We've seen some next-gen games for Sony and some for Xbox, depending on the publisher, go up to $70 or $80, depending. Is this potentially a way that publishers can then cut some of the cost that would come to the users by saying, okay, we're going to sell it for $60 still, but we're going to dynamically insert ads into the background, not necessarily so that it doesn't make sense. I'm not talking like there's an Amazon logo just in the background of the cityscape that doesn't make sense. But when we're talking about billboards or radio advertisements, if you're listening to, say, a GTA game that has those radio stations, they normally have fake ads, but what's to stop them from putting real ads? That, I think, is a bit more disruptive, to be honest. But I'm kind of okay with baking ads into background assets where it would make sense that ads would be displayed were it real life.
Yeah, I mean, in any cityscape game, any modern or future based game, it kind of makes sense to me. Like, if anything, it's the one thing that seems a little weird swinging around New York as Spider-Man is that there isn't billboards everywhere.
Right.
Like, and then when you go to Times Square, they had to come up with all of this fake advertising. And that's literally time that the developers have to spend. What if they were literally just creating, the squares of the billboards and the screens and saying, oh, you advertisers come up with something, we'll just stick it in the game. Because would it make more sense if you go to Times Square in Amazing Spider-Man 2 and it's actual ads for Coke and Kodak and ramen noodles?
It makes it feel lived in. I mean, but at the same time, there's a part of me that remembers, and it was not NBA 2K that had the unskippable video ads in it. It was UFC 4 in 2020. I misspoke.
Okay.
That had a video ad that played on the loading screens that was non-skippable, which would annoy the crap out of me.
Yeah, see, that stuff's awful.
If this project stays at the level in which it's described, which is dynamic insertion into the background and seemingly for realistic ways of showing ads, I don't think I hate it. And especially if it sticks to just free-to-play games, because, hey, if you're playing a free-to-play game, the developers have got to get some dough, too. Now, granted, they're probably making it off of microtransactions or something like that. But there are some folks who play these games that try very hard not to spend real money on microtransactions and will do the grind. This makes it so that you get a little more money back to those developers. You're inserting ads in a way that would theoretically make sense for the world around you. I don't necessarily see it as bad, but I see it as a slippery slope that could turn bad based on how other people may decide to implement it in other games going forward.
Yeah, because we don't want Ready Player One.
Yeah, exactly.
The R&D team has found out that we can cover 80% of the consumer's VR visor space with ads before they have a migraine.
Right. And so, interesting point here. The article on The Verge says this isn't new. In the past, EA had partnered with a company called Massive, which was owned by Microsoft. They placed ads in Madden, Skate, NHL, NASCAR franchises, as well as Burnout Paradise. Supposedly, there were digital Obama ads plastered on digital sporting events or in billboards in these games. And then even going back to Saints Row 2, they had real-life ads on billboards for things like Netflix in the world of Saints Row 2.
Yeah, see, and stuff like that to me makes sense. I don't want to see the Amazon billboard in the new Dragon Age game.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't make sense. But if you're doing a GTA-like game where you're in a city, there's ads there anyways. So I don't necessarily feel it's as bad as long as it is not you jacking the price up on me more to put ads in there for yourself.
Yeah, because the ads should be supplementing the cost of the game.
They won't. We already know how EA works.
Yeah, between cartoons and comic books and video games and stuff, like these companies, there's actually there's a fair amount of development that goes into creating fake companies, because if you're gonna have a cereal box on a table in front of a character, well, it can't be Post or General Mills or anything because they didn't pay to be in the game, so you have to develop a brand name. You have to think of a character mascot to put on it. You have to create artwork for that box. Instead, they pop a box of Lucky Charms on the table, and the company gets $50 a month from General Mills or something. Yeah. It's not a bad idea.
Look, you got to be smart about it though too, because I don't know if you remember the Power Rangers movie that came out in 2018 or whatever. They had an advertising deal. I think it was with Dr. Pepper and with Krispy Kreme, and they made Krispy Kreme like a part of the plot, which was kind of funny. But at the same time, you're like, okay, you could stop saying Krispy Kreme all the time.
But then again, that wasn't the worst part of that movie. So,
fair. I mean, I enjoyed that movie for what it is. If you look at it as just like a popcorn, have fun movie, I enjoyed it. But that's neither here nor there.
Even at that level, I had a little trouble with that one.
I had fun. And it was fun watching Elizabeth Banks go crazy.
Elizabeth Banks. Yeah, she was great as Rita Repulsa. Her Rita Repulsa was fucking hilarious.
And I wanted to see where they were going to go with Tommy Oliver that they set up at the very end of that movie. Which
it was a good setup. But yeah, there will be no sequel. Not with the $42 that movie made worldwide. They might have lost money on that one.
I think they made it was actually profitable from what I recall, but
that advertising budget was huge.
I don't honestly remember, but yeah. So ads, if they're done right, not terrible. We'll see what happens with this. Microsoft has been pretty quiet. The Verge reached out to them based off the article they published, and they said they did not have any additional information to share. If you want more info on that, you can go to our show notes at bit.ly/ATGN. What is this, 484? 483.
43.
bit.ly/ATGN 483. Make sure it's all caps for ATGN, and you can find the links to the stories we talk about in our show notes there. I have a second story, but I'll let you go first just so we kind of make this get organized well, so I'm not talking a ton. We break up my block of talking. We'll go with what do you got for us, Bachman?
We got a nice little bit of casting news from the DC universe, and it looks like it's going to be something that is either going to be fantastic or utterly awful. So as DC tries to move forward and, get itself away from the Snyderverse and, try to get, some more, maybe sneak a little humor in their movies, lighten the mood a little bit, make some shit that's actually, got some heart to it, something more on the level of Shazam, a little less, black and white Justice League. We have the casting of the Wonder Twins. DC's Wonder Twins will be KJ Apa and Isabel May. Isabel May, on the Hollywood Reporter thing, I found an article that said how the mayor of Kingstown turned Isabel May into the star of 1883. So I guess she's on both of those shows, which I haven't seen. So I actually had to pull up her IMDb because it's not an actress name I know. She's also on her best known for is 1883, which is the prequel to Yellowstone.
Huh.
So I'm assuming, she's got a ton of people watching that show because if you got Paramount Plus, most people are watching Yellowstone. Which Yellowstone's awesome. I just happen to be watching it by buying the seasons on Amazon. So I'm not watching it on Paramount Plus, but it is a fantastic show. 1883 is the prequel to it. I believe with Tim McGraw and Sam Elliott. So I'm assuming she's playing somebody's daughter because she's a fairly young looking actress. She was also on Alexa and Katie, the movie I Want You Back with Charlie Day that was on Prime Video, and Young Sheldon, where she plays Veronica Duncan. So I'm assuming, probably a lot of people know her from Young Sheldon because I know those CBS shows have a huge audience. So so she would be playing Zaina. Wait, is it Zaina? I got the names backwards.
I always get them mixed up, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Jaina. Yeah, because it's Zan and Jaina. But the one that I thought was hilarious is that, KJ Apa, it's always found to be a very strange name. But if you know him as anything, you know him as Archie from Riverdale.
Huh.
Yeah. So Archie from Riverdale, which that kid's a great actor. I've watched the first, I think, 5 seasons of that show. It is utterly remarkable how crazy of a soap opera they did with Archie and the gang. And if you haven't watched it, dear God, just go watch the pilot. When you find out that during the summer, spoilers, Archie's been banging one of his teachers while working at a construction site. And so he shows up to school just ripped. It is the weirdest shit ever because it's like somebody watched 100 seasons of Guiding Light and All My Children and The Young and the Restless, and then turn around and wrote the Archie Riverdale gang. And Archie, the guy that's been playing Archie for a while now, is going to be Zan. And then, we got Isabel May as Jaina. For an HBO Max film. So it's something that's coming out on HBO Max, in the building of the new world. We got Adam Stickhill. It's SZTYKIEL.
I have no idea. No clue.
He worked on the script for Dwayne Johnson's upcoming Black Adam, is writing and directing the Wonder Twins. And we got Marty Bowen and Wick Godfrey of Temple Hill producing. In the DC lore, the Wonder Twins are a pair of alien siblings named Zan and Jaina, introduced in the Hanna-Barbera's 1970s all-new Super Friends Hour, which, of course, that's where I know them from. So they made their way in the Super Friends comic. Eventually were incorporated in DC's larger universe, known for their catchphrase "Wonder Twin Power Activate," with Jaina having the power to transform into animals, and Zan turning into water. In the age of the internet, they've been the butt of numerous memes and jokes. Because the joke is always that Zaina yells, "Power of an enraged fucking 8,000-pound gorilla," and then Zan goes, "Bucket of water." Because he can just turn into water. And it was never like animated water either. It was just like maybe a wave was like the best he could do. It was so weird how their powers were set. But so we got those coming up. And then there was one other thing. The quick thing where they're talking about will the WB Discovery DC Entertainment overhaul discover the comics division? So apparently there's a whole bunch of upheaval going on at DC right now. So as they're pushing forward to a more getting, hopefully some more lighthearted content, but also trying to build a universe, which they basically crashed at this point like 3 times. Because don't forget, Green Lantern was supposed to be the start of like the buildup of the Justice League. No. And then Man of Steel into Batman versus Superman into Justice League was supposed to be a whole new No. And so now we're starting like a third buildup where, I guess possibly if they did anything going forward with another Justice League, we might have the sparkly vampire Batman in that Justice League. Because, Matt Reeves' Batman did extremely well. I'm looking forward to it popping up on HBO Max, I think, Wednesday. I'm looking forward to watching it again where I can pause it because it is a fucking 3-hour movie.
It might be tomorrow.
Is it the 18th?
I think it was. Tomorrow is record this.
I thought at some point it was supposed to be on Friday, but then, I guess maybe it's Monday.
I don't know.
Because having it be a 45-day window in the theaters was kind of weird. But so they've got a bunch of shifting going around, and they keep calling on the idea that they need to have like their own Kevin Feige, which, big shocker. They need someone to run stuff. And in the article I found on Comics Beat, they talk about that. Well, WB tried this once. They had DC Films run by Jeff Johns and John Berg, and it didn't go well. And that's where we had like the failure of the Snyderverse and everything, because even when DC puts supposedly one person in charge, you still have too many executives making decisions. And the one thing that Kevin Feige like kind of got shit for was that the guy that ran Marvel wasn't allowed to give him instruction. He only answered to the CEO of Disney.
Eventually.
But eventually.
Once they got Ike Perlmutter out of the way.
They got to that point where the guy running Marvel had no say in the Marvel movies because Feige was in charge. 23 movies later, we have the biggest movie franchise of all time. We're about to get a Doctor Strange sequel. Who the fuck ever would have thought that was possible? We're about to get a 4th Thor movie. What the hell? If you back the right horse, and I mean, honestly, when it comes down to it, people want to complain, oh, it's the Marvel method. They put 10 jokes and blah, blah. They make fucking good movies. I grew up in 1989. We had Batman, where like all we had was a rubber-cowled fucking, Tim Burton craziness. And like we hoped for 3 good movies in a row and could never get them. We couldn't get a good Superman trilogy. We couldn't get a Batman trilogy. By the 3rd movie, every franchise died. Kevin Feige found a way to do 23 movies in a row that told basically one story. That is fucking amazing. It's the only like cinematic universe now that spans the same as James Bond, who's been around for 100 years. Like, it's insane what he's been able to do. And part of it is you have to have one person that actually loves your characters, is good at storytelling, and will put their fucking foot down. Kevin Feige is the one that said, I want Jon Favreau to direct an Iron Man movie, and backed Favreau when Favreau said he wanted the reformed drug addict RDJ as his star. They took a big fucking risk. The insurance company didn't want to back him. They're like, no, RDJ is uninsurable. We can't do this. And fucking Feige backed their play, and it worked. Could have failed. Could have miserably failed. Could have been a massive flop. Iron Man was not a guarantee. People forget that Iron Man at the time was a C-list Marvel character. He wasn't even on the Avengers.
At best. Iron
Man was shit in the comics at the time. They took a big risk, but they do. They need one person at DC. Because I'll be honest, I still think Superman is one of the greatest movies ever made. I think Shazam is the closest thing that DC's done so far to get near there. And if they had one person at DC that loved the characters, that would be able to put their foot down, but also take risks and be like, no, this is what we're doing. And we're going to make a continuous universe of characters. DC's got most of the big guns. They've got Superman. They've got Batman. They've got Wonder Woman. Spider-Man is pretty much the only character that reaches that level when you look at worldwide recognition in all languages. Like, they have the big 3. There's a reason, DC Comics has been around for so damn long. And the fact that they can't get, one cohesive vision that doesn't involve dark and broody, like, how the fuck can you not give me a Superman that can smile, that is bright and shiny.
Hashtag
He's
restore the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, fuck you. He's literally the character that's like the basis of hope in all Superman stories. He hopes humans will get better. Like that's what Superman should be. I hope that they find that person that can run DC films and make the shit work.
So the thing that always baffled me with the difficulties they've had getting this cohesive universe together, and it's really easy to be like, oh my God, Marvel did it. Why don't they just follow their method? It's not that easy. I mean, and we saw that with the power struggles that Kevin Feige had over the years when Marvel Television was a separate thing from the Marvel Studios things, which are now folded under one banner but took multiple years. Why couldn't the lesson be learned when they saw how well the CW Arrow shows worked together? We had the Arrowverse where they folded everything together. They were doing a really good job of making a cohesive universe where everyone had their own stories but would come together for a crossover once a year. Now
I can tell you why.
Yeah, I can too, but we're not at that point anymore. Like I've stopped watching most of the Arrowverse stuff, but you see what the crossovers have been lately, and it's been tougher and tougher to do as things have gotten more complex storyline wise. But go back to the very beginning, like the first 4 or 5 years of Arrow, and we're getting these crossovers and building this connected universe. It was really cool stuff. And then we started to see, ooh, they're going to touch on characters really interesting. We had the Suicide Squad about to show up on Arrow. We called them Task Force X, obviously. Tara Strong comes in to voice someone who sounds like Harley Quinn and looks like her from what we can tell, but can't be her. They bring in Manu Bennett to play Slade Wilson. He's fantastic. And then it's, we want these things for the movies. You guys can't touch them anymore. And they kneecapped themselves on that. And I was like, man, it's okay to have two different things that exist. Like they'll do it on some things. Like we have a Grant Gustin Flash, and we supposedly have an Ezra Miller Flash that'll happen at some point in time. They even crossed them over in the television show at one point in time. I just don't understand why you can't look at that and be like, look, we're doing this in television. We obviously can't follow the same approach, but we need to look into how to connect things and make it so that it's rewarding going through. And I don't know what that sound is. It's back. I apologize, everyone. And it's
the sound of the bicycle clicking. Yeah. The sad thing is, I mean, well, and V asked in the chat, you want to know why? It's the problem with Batman.
His parents are dead.
Batman is why you can't have nice things. Because every time DC has a huge movie blow up since the 1978 Superman, it's Batman. And so the wrong lesson is always learned by the WB executives, which is dark and broody sells. Because Batman needs to be dark and broody. He needs to be emo. He needs to be sad about my parents dying. Because that is the character. If Marvel had done Iron Man, and then the next thing they did was the version of Moon Knight that is just a knockoff of Batman, because those stories exist. There are versions of Moon Knight where he's as crazy as Batman, but he wears a white suit because he's even crazier and he wants to see
Right.
blood on it. Like there's a world out there where they did Moon Knight as the second movie, and then they did a trilogy of Christopher Nolan-esque batshit crazy, super expensive, fucking awesome Moon Knight movies. And then every movie after that's dark and brooding. And that's the problem, is that WB executives think that what works for a Batman works for all their characters. And then they don't get it. There's something about writers and directors that understand the heart of a character versus just copying stories. The guys that did Shazam understand the heart of that character. They basically redid a Jeff Johns story straight out of a Jeff Johns comic when he redid the origins Shazam, and the Billy Batson orphan turns into a god, and it's perfect. And they nailed it, and it has heart, and it's funny, and it's dark in some parts, but it's a funny, heart-filled show that fits in to that DC universe they were building at the time. But then you have a version of Superman that never smiles and has a dark costume on because Christopher Nolan's Batman sold really well. And there's no point where Superman should ever be dark, where there's ever a question of there being any darkness in the character of Superman, because he's the living embodiment of hope in storytelling. Spider-Man has done dark and light because that works for the character. Peter Parker's life sucks. He's not, the unstoppable alien from another planet. He doesn't have all the money from the dead parents. He's just a broke kid from Queens whose life just always kicks him in the balls. And so, you get the dark and brooding in there with the comedy because the character quips because he's nervous. And when you find the right writers and directors that can nail that character and find the heart of it, it fucking works. All you have to do is look at Richard Donner's Superman, and I think it's the scene in Superman 2 where you see Christopher Reeves transform from Clark Kent into Superman by standing up and taking off his glasses. In less than 6 seconds of film, that actor and that director give you more Superman than we've gotten in the DCU since the 4 Superman movie. Since Batman Begins, we have not seen that much Superman in the DCU. And that's a problem because that should be their big guy. The big blue Boy Scout should be leading the charge. I should watch a Superman movie and be filled with hope. And I have not been since Christopher Reeves died, basically.
The other thing to consider is you can do Batman and not make it incredibly over the top dark. And hold on here. I'm not saying 66 Batman. I'm saying look
at Bright Knight.
Batman the animated series though. Like, don't get me wrong. There's dark elements there. It goes there, but it's not afraid to have a more lighthearted moment. Have things happen that show that while Bruce Wayne's a damaged kid still, there are good things that can happen in his life, and the character isn't always dark and brooding. Now, you can get away with more in a cartoon, I know, obviously, but let's be fair. Batman the animated series, if your first thought of it is, cartoon, it sucks, you obviously haven't watched it, because it is arguably one of the best depictions of Batman outside of the comics.
Well, and plus, we got Batman Brave and the Bold. We got a brighter cartoon version of Batman. We got the Batman, the cartoon version, where it was a more manga-influenced anime version of Batman, where the Joker looked like a crazy-ass Rastafarian. Like, they've done versions of the Batman where it's not so dark and brooding, and that still works. So, yeah, there's somebody... There just always seems to be someone at Warner Brothers that whenever they're moving on a new franchise, they dark and broody sells. Dark and broody sells.
It's because they've been bought and sold so many times over the last X number of years that there's new people that come in and say, they fucked it up before, we're going to do it my way and it's going to work. And if they can honestly find someone, and I hate making the comparison, but it's the comparison the media uses, to be their Kevin Feige, to basically be the point person who says, everything in this universe runs through me to make the decisions on it, to make sure that we're all on the same page, and they can make a cohesive world. That's good. That's what we want. But you've got to make sure it's not the Snyderverse version, please.
Well, and having read Jeff Johns' work and seen like how it was translated into Shazam and seen like how Stargirl was done, a character he created for his sister, like I believe he was that person, but there's no proof of it. I've never seen it, but I would guarantee that somebody at WB was kneecapping him. Someone at WB was like, oh no, you have to run all of this by these 10 guys on this committee board and they have to sign off on everything. And because otherwise I know Jeff Johns gets it. I know he understands the characters.
I mean, the key here is I think Marvel was incredibly lucky at the time in which they did it in putting their faith in Kevin Feige to kind of spearhead things early on, Kevin Feige, having worked on a bunch of other movies and things like that dealt with comic book properties, kind of had an idea of, okay, we've got to try and make everything cohesive, got to have everything fit together. And if they hadn't done that from the start, they'd have been screwed. And let's be honest here, we've talked about it on this show before. What they did was incredible because no one had ever thought about doing something like that, to basically tie 30 movies together. Now everyone wants to have their own cinematic universe. Hell, we even saw it with the Universal Monsters. They're going to try and turn Tom Cruise's Mummy into its own cinematic universe. It's not that easy.
Let's not forget, that was the third try at the dark universe. That the Tom Cruise Mummy was the third failed attempt to start the dark universe. Yeah, everybody wants to jump in and have a cohesive universe where, having Nick Fury show up at the end of the first Iron Man, cool little thing. Didn't have to go anywhere. May not have worked.
And so I guess that's
they got lucky.
That's the thing that we need to keep mind of is if DC and Warner / Discovery gets that point person there to run things, it's not a guarantee, but it's a step towards the right direction to try and make everything cohesive and fit. But at the same time, you've also got to have some faith in them, which I know is tough to say right now because it's a bunch of new corporate overlords. There's a bunch of back history of how things haven't worked. But if you kneecap the person you put in charge of guiding this whole cinematic universe going forward, you're right back where you are. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Discovery execs, because it seems like in most cases Discovery execs are taking over the Warner things from what has been reported, treat these properties going forward. And there's also questions of what does it mean for DC Comics and things like that. They keep getting floated out there, which it's all speculation at this point in time. And some people would have you believe that DC Comics is going away. Some people wouldn't. There's nothing that we know factually, and keep in mind the sources when you start reading some of these news stories. I'm not going to put names to things, but there's some really shady ones that are out there that they so-and-so said this. And you're like, so-and-so
and the
hasn't
same
worked
rumors
there
happen
for a
with
decade.
Marvel. And here's a fact I will tell you. None of those Marvel movies exist without 80 years of comic book backstories.
Exactly.
And so you're not going to get a cohesive DC universe of films without their 80 years of DC comic backstories. So if you stop making comics, that's where all these original stories come from. So, I mean, it won't hurt them in the short term, but in the long run, they won't have anything to take from. So the idea that the comics would go away, a few less physical comics every month, maybe, and a lot more on the digital side, but they're still going to be making stories because if those writers and artists aren't out there creating those books every month, eventually they're not going to have anything to steal all these stories from to make these multi-billion-dollar movies.
They'll just buy indie properties.
That's possible.
Sorry,
we'll
cynicism.
find out by the end of the year, honestly. We got Black Adam. If these dates are, if nothing gets moved, we got Black Adam October 21st, and we got Shazam Fury of the Gods December 16th. So Shazam is like, that's my high mark. That's the one I look at. Like, this is the writer director got the character. Zachary Levi got the character. He played a child in the body of a god, and he nailed it. And it was funny while also being heartfelt and just fucking hilarious. And so we're going to get the bad guy version of that, which The Rock has been trying to do for over 10 years. I can't imagine that script's not amazing, because you're putting Dwayne Johnson as a superhero finally. He's wanted to do it so long. He was originally in the first Shazam movie. Like, that's what the script was. And he pulled his character out because his production company said it didn't work. And so they pulled him out of the movie. So if he's been willing to wait this long, Black Adam's got to be amazing. And then we get to see Shazam Fury of the Gods.
Hopefully.
So what we're going to have is basically a trilogy of Shazam films by the end of the year. That's what you build around, DC. There's your starting point. It doesn't need to be Superman. It needs to be Dr. Fate and Atom Smasher. It needs to be low-level characters like Iron Man was at the time that nobody gave a fuck about, and just make a good story.
Well, I think a lot of their plan is also trying to pivot to some HBO Max content, because we know there's the Gotham Year One series based off of Matt Reeves' Batman that's coming out. Supposedly there's a Penguin spinoff that's going to be on HBO Max.
How many Batman shows can we get without Batman?
Well, plus there's also
All
the
of them.
Pennyworth show that's
That's
on
the
Epix
answer.
right now.
Uh-huh.
So it'll be interesting. I hope they figure it out, because it's good for us all if they do.
Yeah.
And personally, I hope they figure it out, because it'll shut up the Restore the Snyderverse people, because I'm really tired of it. Really tired of it. I can't put into words how tired I am of it.
Yeah. It's awful.
Yeah. So let me do this bonus story I had. We'll do it real quick, just because we've got to move on to get out of here in 20 minutes as it is. But CD Projekt Red had done some announcements this week, one of which was the DLC, the first expansion pack for Cyberpunk 2077. Not coming out this year, coming in 2023. So we don't know if that's the beginning of 2023, the end of it. Who knows at this point in time. It's a pretty good game, though. My wife's going back and replaying it again now with the current round of updates they've put in, and it seems like it's fixed a lot of the problems. But what they did also announce is that originally in Q2 of this year, we are going to get the next-gen upgrade of The Witcher 3 for PS5 and the Xbox Series devices. That has been delayed indefinitely. They did a video with Mikhail Nowosky, and I probably screwed that up, who is the SVP of Business Development, where they took some umbrage with the fact that people said it may not come at all. If you skip ahead to the 3034 mark in a video they've posted to YouTube, he said, when it comes to the next-gen launch of Witcher 3, I think there's one comment I actually wanted to make. I've been looking at headlines that popped up here and there over the internet, and I've seen one that really drew my attention, which is Witcher Next Gen delayed indefinitely, which sounds like the game's in some sort of developmental hell. I want to state this is not the fact. There's been a lot of insinuations we're going to launch in June of next year, something like that. That's completely not the case. So what happened here effectively is they'd given it to a company by the name of Saber Interactive, which is the ones who'd done the Switch port of The Witcher 3, who are working on the next-gen upgrade. They've evidently cut ties with that company. Now, whether that's because of their offices in Russia or not sure. But remember, CD Projekt Red, based out of Poland, they were one of the game companies that took a stand and said, we're not going to sell any games in Russia while everything's going on. Please don't send us political comments, things like that. This is just part of the story and makes it pertinent in that regard. So some thoughts are there is it may have gotten pulled from them and they're bringing it in-house to handle and finish up the next-gen upgrade. We're not sure when it's going to happen, but at the same time, it's a game that's kind of old in the grand scheme of things. I was really surprised they were doing a next-gen upgrade to begin with. I assume we'll get it at some point, but I also assume that their focus is probably on Cyberpunk because they're still making money off of that and on some newer games they're probably making. So if you're like me, who was holding out to finally play The Witcher 3 when the next-gen upgrade came out, looks like you got a little while longer to wait because I bought the Game of the Year edition 2 years ago for $10 on an Xbox Live sale. Never quite got to it. Then heard, oh, there's a next-gen upgrade? That'll be when I start the game. At this point, I may just start the game because I'm really intrigued by it. My wife has played through it like 6 or 7 times on Xbox and Switch. She bought it on both so that she could play it wherever.
Damn.
She loves the game. And if you play on Switch, evidently you have cross-play with PC. You can move your save game back and forth, which I thought was kind of cool. Sadly, that is not the case with Xbox. But yeah, Witcher 3...
We got the Witcher 3, like the big bundle edition when it was on sale on PlayStation for I think $10.
Yeah, that's what I did too. Eventually there will be a next gen upgrade for it for PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. No time frame on when that is. We'll see.
Oh, that's good. It's one more game, in 2025. If I eventually get a PS5, that'll be one of the games that I can play if I ever am able to find one of those at my local Best Buy. If they ever exist besides scalpers grabbing them.
I can't remember if we talked about it on this last week. We found out that Microsoft actually paid more money for chips during this shortage is what happened. They put themselves at the top of the queue because they'd pay more for chips.
Yeah, so that they could get more smart Xboxes out.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of smart.
It seems to be smart, yeah. Because, I still, I know when Wario 64 put it out that Best Buys were getting another shipment, none showed up. Not a single digital Xbox, or not a single digital edition PS5 at the Best Buys here in the Treasure Valley.
And hell, at this point, it's going to be, if you can find one, I don't know if it matters if it's a disc version or discless one. If you want one in the short term, you just get what you can get, I guess.
Yeah, I don't see any point in paying extra for a disc drive I'm not going to use. I've come to find that I love my games on digital. Other than No Man's Sky, I don't play physical discs.
Neither does Willie because his won't play physical discs anymore.
His isn't by choice.
He still can't play Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's pretty damn salty about it.
Which sucks. It is a fun game.
It's really fun. It's really fun. But that does wrap up the news of the week. Before we finish the show here, you got about 10 minutes left as we finish the show up to make sure Bachman gets out on time. We'll give a 5-minute window there just in case. Yeah. We are going to finish up with a segment called What I'm Into. For those of you guys that have watched this show over the last 10 years, you know what that is. It's our chance to share with you guys just what kind of geeky and nerdy things we're getting into, because you may want to go check them out yourselves. And I'll kick things off because my list is fairly short. This was a bunch of professional wrestling this week. So I watched Dynamite on Wednesday. Then Friday night was the live Rampage viewing. And then they taped a bunch of stuff for Saturday night where AEW had Battle of the Belts 2. And I found out that because I had AEW Everything recorded on YouTube TV and Battle of the Belts 1, that because they named it Battle of the Belts 2, it didn't record. So I've only watched the last match out of the 3 from the hour-long special. And I'm hoping it shows up on demand today so I can catch the first 2 matches. Or I'll just wait until they put more of it up on YouTube. I mean, to be fair, they put a bunch of it on their Twitter timeline, things like that. So I did get to see a fair share of it. So I was watching that. I played a little bit more Pokemon on my Nintendo Switch. And I have gone back to a microtransaction game that I very rarely dump money into that I've been playing, I realized, for probably 8 years at this point in time. It is a game called WWE Super Card, which is kind of like a card battling game.
Mm.
And I've come to realize how out of touch I am with the product, because as you unlock packs, you get more wrestlers and stuff like that. I don't know like 90% of the people that I open up in these packs. I'm like, who the fuck is Ivar? Who is this
That's
person?
all right. Neither does the audience of WWE. Who the fuck is this guy?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get into shots at WWE and not.
I will.
I've made it pretty clear. I let people watch whatever pro wrestling they like. I tend to fall more on the AEW side of the house, though I've dabbled in a little bit of NWA and Impact and Ring of Honor as of late, which has been kind of fun. I like the smaller promotions. So that is that. And then I guess the last thing I want to talk about is the past couple weeks, if you've been listening to this show, I edited most of it out, but you might have noticed I've been locking this chair in position and not moving much because there was a god-awful creak in my chair anytime I swiveled left and right like I'm doing now, which you can hear there's no creak. And anytime I reclined, which I locked the chair so I didn't fall backwards while I was doing this. So I love this chair. I've talked about it before. You see them all over on YouTube gaming channels and things like that and Twitch channels. It's a chair by Secret Lab. They build it as a gaming chair. I think it's incredibly comfortable. I really liked it. And one of the reasons I was interested in it is it comes with a 3-year warranty for everything out of the box. And if you share a photo of it on social media, which I think is kind of smart because it's brand recognition, you get people sharing it, you get another 2 years of warranty. So it has a 5-year warranty on it. I've had the chair for like 8 months. So finally I was like, this doesn't seem right that my chair would be creaking like this. I need to figure out what's going on. So Secret Lab has a support site, and I contacted them, wrote an email, and I actually took a video of me in the chair and moved back and forth so it would give them an example of what the creak was. Sent them an email. I had an email back that night, and they said, okay, we think we know what the problem is. We need you to take a couple more videos, and here's what we want you to do. We want you to push on the logo on the back of the chair and see if it creaks and make a video of it. Then push on the lumbar support and see if it creaks. And then just spin the chair so you can show us what's going on. And what they were able to diagnose then is the lumbar support wasn't making the noise, the chair back wasn't making the noise, and what had gone on was the pneumatic lift and the tilt mechanism there was an issue with. So they sent me another email and said, we think it's these things, but before we send parts, we want to ask you if you're able to take the base apart. So if you can take the 5-wheel base off of the pneumatic lift and then get the micro tilt mechanism off too. And what I found out, because I'm not a small man and I sit in this chair 8 to 10 hours a day for work, is that I, for the life of me, could not get the base to detach from the pneumatic lift. This was taking a rubber mallet to it like they show to get it disconnected. So I emailed them back. And they said, no problem. We're going to send you a few things from FedEx. And I got, as soon as they sent me that email, I got shipment notifications. And it was supposed to come on Saturday, came on Sunday. Or excuse me, supposed to come on Friday, came on Saturday. Not a Secret Lab issue. It was a FedEx issue. FedEx had shipping issues. And they sent me brand new base, brand new micro tilt or brand new tilt adjust, and a brand new pneumatic lift and sleeve. And
nice.
On the order, you can see what these would have cost. And they were not insignificant price. And said, okay, it was packaged nicely, had QR codes to show me install directions because it's also designed for people who want to swap out parts because things break outside of warranty. No. And in 30 minutes, I was able to take the entire bottom of my chair off, replace it with the new parts, push it back in front of my desk, and there is no creaking noise. I spin smoothly with no noise. The chair is absolutely back to what it needs to be again. And it was an incredibly painless process is why I bring that up.
That's awesome.
It was super easy. I traded like 4 or 5 emails with them when it was all said and done.
Wait. So they got, oh, shit. What's that? We used to hear about all the time. They got that thing. What's it called?
Customer service?
Customer service. Yeah.
So if the warranty experience had been shitty, I would come and talk about it here. I would come and talk about it on Twitter because when I find things I like, I tend to share them on this show. The warranty experience was pretty damn painless. I'm just waiting to hear back from them now if I'm supposed to ship these things back to them or not, because they said they could request them back. The problem is I can't take the pneumatic lift off the base of the chair, so I'm not sure how I'm going to fit that all in one box because the base is like a 5-spoke base and it came in its own flat box. And then the pneumatic lift and the tilt mechanism came in a larger box that was separately packaged within. So I don't have a good way to get them apart unless they're just like, take a hammer to it and beat the shit out of it until you can get it back to us.
I can actually tell you from someone who, moves boxes for a living, you could literally take those 2 boxes, cut the bottom out of one of them, leave it as one piece, and just put a whole bunch of tape around the outside and make those 2 boxes one box, and they'll ship it. They'll fucking ship it.
I sent them back. It's the weekend, so I'm sure they're not responding to
Yeah,
emails
of
as much.
course.
I sent them back one last night that basically said, hey, everything worked great. You guys made this really smooth experience for me. I installed the parts. Everything's working as it should. Thanks for your help. So I'm just waiting to hear back to figure out whether I need to ship these things back to them. But if you go and look, I'm not pounding my own chest for how much I spent on a chair, but this chair, when it was on sale, was still like $550, $600, something like that. If you look at the parts they sent me to replace it, it was about $250, $300 worth of parts that they sent me that was part of my 5-year warranty to fix my chair. So the warranty paid off. I'm on it even a year into it yet. So I'm kind of looking at it and going, hey, if this is what's going to happen over the next 5 years, if I have an issue with this chair, I feel like I got my money worth. And I legitimately have to give them credit just for how well they treated me through the process and how quick the process was to get it taken care of. So kudos to Secret Labs. I liked it a lot. But
I'm kind of wondering and hoping to see if I have hopefully the same experience with the Lazy Boy, because I was told when I bought my chair, lifetime warranty on all parts.
Mm-hmm.
So anything breaks, all I have to do is tell them what part I need, and they will give me the part, and I can replace it myself. Which, I mean, it's literally a reclinable chair with no power thing, so it's it's literally undoing a bolt or a screw and putting a part back on. So I know I can fix it. But yeah, I'm waiting to see, like, so something breaks in my Lazy Boy. I'm hoping I have that type of customer experience where it's like, hey, here's the part you need, put it in.
Right. So that was my experience. I just realized I took more time than I intended to. I apologize. We got 8 minutes left. Bachman, I'm going to throw things over into your court now. Wrap things up for us. What you been getting into, sir?
Let's see. Played a little DVD.
Nice.
We did, we finished season 3 of Face Off. I watched a couple of movies, nothing special this week. I got Spider-Man No Way Home and Scream 5 on Blu-ray. Sadly, was not able to get steelbooks of either one, even though I was day and date the day they came out at Best Buy. Best Buy in the Treasure Valley here never even put them on the shelves this time. They were all pre-sold to scalpers. They didn't even have like the USB, like the SQ on the shelf for the steelbooks. They never made it to the shelves.
My Best Buy is getting rid of their Blu-ray and DVD section.
They're just getting rid of it? Awesome.
All it is right now is 2 racks in the back corner of the store, and they basically said, hey, once we get this narrowed down enough, we're getting rid of it because people are buying movies online, be it digitally or just from them direct to have shipped to them.
Yeah, it's ridiculous because I mean, it's not like I needed the steelbook of either one. I mean, I wanted the Spider-Man one. I didn't even know they were doing the Scream one until I got in the store. But then, the fact that they never even made it to the shelves, like, then why are you doing them? Like, and the moment I was in the store looking for it, I open up my phone, I look on eBay, and there are Spider-Man No Way Home steelbooks going for $90 on eBay.
That's
if you're
insane.
a flipper, you're a scalper. Fuck you.
I don't
fuck
understand.
You people.
I don't understand the culture of flipping steel books. Like, they're cool, and the collector in me would like to have them, but I don't understand why someone would pay the $90 for it. It's not cool enough for me to be like, I'm going to pay double the cost of this Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's
more.
insane. I was iffy at paying the $35 for the steelbook. I'm sure as fuck not paying $90. Yeah, I got a steelbook of Civil War. It's cool looking. I got a steelbook of Black Panther. It's cool looking. I don't need them. So yeah, I got me the regular versions of Spider-Man No Way Home and fucking Scream 5. And yeah, already had to rewatch Spider-Man No Way Home all the way through once. And yeah, like the like that last half hour twice, like once the other Peters show up, because just once Ned opens the portal and Andrew Garfield walks in, that movie is just from there to the credits, it's just so fucking amazing and just so fucking heartfelt. It's so good. So yeah, I've already rewatched that twice and just loved it. And then, we were thinking about going to see Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just we didn't feel like leaving the house yesterday because we're going out today for family Easter stuff. So we took the day off, but I do want to see that. I've heard nothing but good stuff on all my movie review podcasts I've been listening to, that Michelle Yao and fucking, I can't think of her name. Jamie Lee Curtis are just amazing in it. So I can't wait to see that movie.
The new Nick Cage one's also supposed to be really good that I'm not remembering.
That one I've heard good stuff on. And then I did get a Lego build finished this week, so I had a little bit of time. So I now have Carnage on my desk. So yeah, this was a fun one. Yeah, watching Face Off, like I didn't have, like the garage is kind of a mess right now, so I wasn't able to like build it or make anything. But I was like, well, I want to make something. So yeah, I busted out one of my little Lego sets. So as I've been moving things around here in the office. I got a bunch of shelves reorganized, which you can't see because they're not on camera, but it's like the shelf above my desk here. I now have all of my art of books. So I have all the art of the Marvel films, the art of Star Wars, art of the Mandalorian, art of Incredibles 2, art of Big Trouble in Little China, my Spectrum art books, just all sorts of art books above my head now. So it's nice to have those up there as a reference. And then, yeah, I'm reorganizing and moving stuff around. I got 3 comic book collections eventually that need to be cataloged. I got one of them done this week. The Girlfriend's Daughter Fashion. I cataloged her father's books for her and give them all back to her in nice clean new bags and boards, all cataloged, alphabetized. So
Nice.
that's done. I got to do my buddy Marvin's collection next, which is about 700 comics if I remember correctly. I have a box sitting over here behind me that is 1,000 boards. And I have 10 bags, and each bag holds 100 comic book bags. So I have 1,000 bags as well. So once I get that started, I'll have to go buy I think probably 3 long boxes for him. Because yeah, his comics are just in random paper shipping boxes. They're just all beat up. So yeah, got to pull all those out of the crappy bags and boards they're in, toss all the old shit, put them in clean bags and boards, and tape them down, organize them, alphabetize them, and then catalog them. I'll be able to send those back to my buddy. And then after all that's done, I can start on my collection, which is now, I think I got about 7 years worth of comics that haven't been cataloged. So
Oh, wow.
it's going to be a project. And
For sure.
at the same time I'm planning on doing it, I'm planning on pulling out the books that I eventually want to keep and separating out the majority of the collection that I'm looking at possibly selling. So I'm going to keep my Amazing Spider-Man. I'm going to keep my Nightwing run. I'm going to keep my New Warriors. But I think roughly 80% of my comic book collection I'm going to try to sell. So separating it is going to be a huge bitch after I
No
catalog
doubt.
and add in all the new stuff. But yeah, so that's what I've been getting into. And now we're going to apparently head off to church and then have ourselves a nothing but cake Easter bunny cake. So I got cake to get to.
It's good stuff. But before we shut this down, friendly reminder, we do stream this show live every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central over at www.geeks.live or www.nerds.live. You can use either to find our live page where we'll talk about geeky and nerdy stuff. And I guess that does wrap things up. Don't forget, like I said, we'll be back next week. Willie should be back. We hope he's feeling better. If you want to send him a get well message, you can send it to @SouthPorky on Twitter. I'm sure he would greatly appreciate it. As we shut this down, you got any final thoughts for us, Mr. Bachman?
Happy Zombie Jesus Day.
It's true. Zombie Jesus Day. There's a really fun Twitter thread of if you were Jesus, how would you return? Go check it out. All the gifts. It's
Nice.
pretty great, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this brand new episode of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back next Sunday live at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central over at live.atgnpodcast.com, channel 3 of the Alpha Geek Radio app, and over at our network home at gonnageek.com/live. If you have any feedback for the show, please contact us atgnpodcast@gonnageek.com, on our hotline number at 304-806-ATGN, or even better, go to Twitter and send us a message @ATGNpodcast. The music you've heard in this show is produced by Kevin MacLeod and can be found at incompetech.com.